going to be.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bill Newell. I'm the CEO of North-South Studios. We're a software and content development company, and we're focused on augmented reality. So today we're going to talk about the next generations of augmented reality applications, all the way from education to gaming to entertainment. And I'm particularly excited about this session because for the past 3 years we have been talking about augmented reality as if it's a technology that is in the future. And today we're going to talk and center our conversation about the present. Augmented reality is here, is now, and you can take advantage of it in several ways. I'm excited because we have now Apple and Google both commit to augmented reality by releasing development kits, both earlier this year. We have The Walking Dead, one of the leading shows in TV networks, now complementing their show with an augmented reality experience. We have IKEA, a giant of furniture retail, now using AR as a way to see how you can leverage augmented reality in a practical way. And above all, we have been talking for the past few years about head-mounted displays that are going to come in the future. But today, we have at our panel companies that have head-mounted displays and technologies that work at a high end for enterprise and for consumers available today. So our focus today is going to be to talk about how you can use augmented reality now and how you can put together applications and how you can start leveraging this technology in your everyday business. So let's meet our panel. We have a fantastic group of experts, and we'll start with you, Michael, all the way at the very end of the table. Hi there.
Hi, everybody. I'm Michael Leventhal. I'm an attorney partner at a law firm called Holmes Weinberg. I work heavily in the augmented reality, virtual reality world. A lot of my clients are creating things or doing the science in that area. What I do for them is I'm outside general counsel for a lot of these companies, which means I'm doing the kind of the corporate and the daily stuff and the intellectual property licensing and all that stuff. So I'm basically the kind of the legal support. My more recent claim to fame is I spent about 5 years working with Magic Leap. The first couple of years I was outside counsel, and then the next 3 as vice president in legal and business affairs. So that was kind of a wild ride. And I'm back in private practice, and this is my field.
Thank you. Tom?
So I'm Tom Wesselman. I run software and firmware at Plantronics. So we make headsets and have been doing that for a long time, big ones and little ones. And in some sense, augmenting the reality of people that want to talk to people that aren't nearby. But what we're doing now is not only making the headsets, but connecting them up to the world. So with mobile apps and desktop apps, and then now with web apps, so that you can tell someone's wearing a headset, I can talk to that person, and really weaving voice and audio into that augmented reality experience. And we call it not just the technology, not just augmenting reality, but giving people superpowers. And it sounds a little far-fetched, but we're in Hollywood. I think, a lot of the technology we have today, 50 years ago, would have seemed like superpowers. I can summon a car to appear and get me. I can read the minds of 10,000 people to find the best sushi place on Ventura Boulevard, and on and on and on. So you can imagine it not just augmenting reality, but what are the superpowers we're going to be giving to people in the future?
Okay, Solomon?
Hi, I'm Suleiman Itani. I'm the founder of Adhere. And we do the OS and application layer for AR. So we're basically the Microsoft of AR. Just give it a bit of time. Never happens if you don't try, right? So the first thing we do is we try to make augmented reality as natural as possible. We want you to be able to touch things, talk to them, wink at them, and they should react just like you want them to react. And ultimately, the digital world should just listen to how the human wants to express themselves. not the other way around. We shouldn't talk computer language. Computers should listen to how we want to interact with it. So that's where we're going. Currently, we do voice gestures. You can touch things in the air. You can put a tablet and just use it, and all of those things. But we're still, the present is bright, the future is brighter. And on the application, we work with partners such as Epson. And what we want to do is to also make augmented reality useful today. Because if you have a platform and it doesn't add value to people at the moment, it won't live long enough to create all of the amazing things. If smartphones weren't useful at day one, they wouldn't have lived long enough to get Uber. There was no Uber at the same time, at that time, but it had email, it had enough to make it very. And so we allow people to collaborate, work together, get step-by-step instructions and guidance to make them more efficient, more secure, and do their tasks much faster. So yeah, that's what we do. Fun stuff.
Thank you, Suleiman. Eric?
Hey everyone, my name is Eric. I'm Eric Trabold, and I'm the Chief Business Officer of a company called Avegant. Avegant is a Silicon Valley-based startup that raised over $50 million to date for its efforts in the display space. And what we at Avegant believe is that in the future, entertainment will not be confined to a small screen that we carry in our pocket or a larger screen that you have at your wall, but that basically entertainment and all applications will surround us. We believe that we are in a phase of a transition from personal computing to mobile computing to ambient computing that will surround us everywhere where we go. Current display technologies, unfortunately, they cannot meet the requirements of this future of ambient computing because they are restricted by opposing constraints. They are opposing constraints like people want to have higher resolution, but we need a lower compute power to drive those devices because we want to take them everywhere. People want to have larger, very immersive field of views, but they want to have a small form factor that looks like a pair of glasses like Bill is wearing over there. Right? So what we did at Avegant, we developed a brand new display architecture that basically solves all these constraints by looking at basically human physiology and how our eyes work and how our brains work, how we perceive resolution, how we perceive color, how we perceive focus. Yeah? And what we do is, compared to other companies like, for example, Epson, who is creating smart glasses, or Magic Leap as well, who has a very an approach to create actually an end-to-end solution, is we want to provide our technologies actually to companies like yours so that you can enhance your solutions and you can really focus on the user experience and creating a whole new solution.
Thank you, Eric. Leo.
Yep. Hey everybody, my name is Leon LaRue. I'm a technical product manager at Epson. I'm sure you've all heard of Epson because of our printers and projectors, but we actually make AR smart glasses too. And we've been doing so for about 6 years now. And over the course of the last 6 years, we released 6 different products in the AR smart glasses category. So we're not quite a new entrant in the category. In fact, we were one of the first back in the days of the initial Google Glass product. I brought a pair of glasses just to kind of demonstrate and drive home the point that Bill and we're trying to make in this session is that AR is here, it's real, it's accessible. If you wanted to get started creating applications today, you can. And companies like Epson and Avegant, and we're all providing the platforms on which you can develop those applications and those games and those solutions. One of my biggest responsibilities at Epson is to work with independent software vendors or ISVs and resellers, and these are companies, businesses that are interested in building software solutions, enterprise-ready software solutions using our glasses and delivering those solutions to end customers. And my job is to kind of enable them with our platform and with third-party software tools and whatever they need essentially to reach their end customers. And these partners, they span a variety of industries. It's museums and visitor experience centers. It's commercial drone applications. It's remote expert applications. So there's a ton of applications. That there are no limits to where you can use AR. And what we're trying to do is empower you to create those use cases and solutions.
Thank you, everybody. So today, what I was hoping to do with the help of our panel is to let you know how you can leverage this technology now. If you go back in time, you would think, back in the early 90s, someone at a company would tell you that you have to get a website. And then, it would be, well, what's a website, right? So, and imagine if you didn't make a website back then, and just 5 years ago you said, yeah, maybe we should have a website, right? It's unimaginable that a business wouldn't have a website. Well, AR is that next jump. We have the web, we have smartphones, and now we're going to have AR. And it is going to change the way we learn, it is going to change the way we game, it is going to put information everywhere, as all of you guys have mentioned. So we're going to talk about what you should consider before you get started. We're going to talk about hardware and software. We're going to talk about tips on how to put together a great AR experience. And we're also going to talk about a little bit about the future. So to get started, so Eric, let's start with you. So based on your experience, what are the things that you would consider, or the initial approach, if you wanted to put together an AR experience?
I mean, what's very interesting what you said. You talked about the customer value, right? I think before developing an application, people should really think about, like, what is the real ROI that a customer will use this application? Because currently with AR, there are additional hurdles compared to, let's say, using an app, right? It's not only opening up your phone, it's currently holding your phone around and looking in the room and trying to use the device like this. Or when it comes to AR glasses, to take something on your head, right? So there the experience even has to be much higher and deliver much higher ROI than even with the phone, right? Because there's an additional device involved with additional constraints that you have. So I would say always think about the customer return, and not just taking an application that already exists and porting it to an AR experience, but think about how can AR itself really provide value to the end user.
All right. Anybody else wants to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think that's really important, the question of why you do it. You don't just do an AR thing because AR is cool and it's the next thing and you want to do it. There has to be, unless of course you're a film company and you're promoting your next film, that may be a reason enough in itself. But other than that, there has to be a real reason. There has to be a thing that actually happens because you're using AR, that is an experience you cannot otherwise have. Otherwise you're just you're creating it for the, just to create it, and the results are probably not going to be that good.
Right. Like in your websites, common. A lot of companies did eventually get their websites and stuff, but that in itself is far from a winning strategy. I guess I'd add, think of the human as well. So the use case and then the human going through it. And what is it like for them? What's the optimal way for them to experience that? This is all really changing quickly. The go-to places like the mobile app. Okay, I'll create an app for that little bit of value. But what's really optimal? And think even of human senses. So you have eyes as input devices. You have smells. Okay. You have gestures and touch and stuff are over-rotated on thumbs, but there's lots of other possibilities. And then voice is a way, one of the few output things, and then hearing is an input. And so what's the optimal way as this person moves throughout their day, not just in the office, but wherever they are, to provide that experience to them?
Thank you. So let's go also to, and by the way, our PowerPoint, we're going to share some slides during our conversation, but I also packed a lot of stats, analytics, and information on several technologies. So if you want the PowerPoint, just give me your business card at the end. I'll make sure to send it to you. So this also brings the issue of rights and licensing. So Michael, let me piggyback on that last thought. So in terms of licensing, in terms of acquiring rights for things, what do you see immediately for AR and for people who need to make a deal today? Because we want to get started now.
Well, in some ways, the rights issues in AR are no different than they have been in any other medium. You have to, if there's a property you want, you have to get the right to use it. If you want to display, if you want to do something that's based on a film, you got to get those rights. If you want to use a work of art, you got to get those rights. In some ways, it's not. I mean, first of all, it's how you define what those rights are is a moving target. I had to do this a few months ago to license rights to a film franchise for a VR development that will at some point probably become an AR development. And you really have to sit down and talk about, like, all right, what is how does it get displayed? what is it? What rights can you get? Sometimes, is it on a particular platform? Is it a display technique? What is the difference between a display technique and a platform when you get right down to it? And I ended up spending a lot of time just crafting a very dense description of what the rights were. And of course, that matters greatly to the people who are licensing the rights to you, because they don't want to give you something and turn around and realize that they just gave you, OTT rights to a television series when they didn't intend to do that. So that gets to be tricky, and one of the challenges there is that most of the people on the other side of the table from me don't know what I'm talking about yet. So I have to kind of educate the people on the other side to get that done. Another rights issue, just very quickly, I don't know if anybody has seen this, the thing that just happened with Jeff Koons and Snapchat. So Snapchat has put up some virtual Jeff Koons artwork in some virtual spaces that you can look at through the Snapchat app. And somebody vandalized them on purpose. I mean, obviously to make a point. But now, if you look that up, it's got these Koons kind of bubbly art pieces have graffiti on them, which raises a whole host of legal issues. I like to call that the Full Employment Act for lawyers, because we are going to be discussing what you can and cannot do, what rights you have to have, and what rights you don't have to have in the virtual space.
Thank you, Michael. So now, it's important to do your homework in life when you start any project. So before you begin, you need to understand the different models or the different platforms. Which somebody mentioned earlier that most of the companies that are here in the panel and myself, we're here to enable you to use augmented reality. So Solomon, at Athier, you work with several companies, you work with several partners, you partnered with Epson. In terms of models, software as a software, a platform, what are the things that you see emerging as means of enabling others?
Okay, that's very interesting. So if you go back to the 80s, let's say, the successful model was actually selling hardware. You sell a PC, whatever, your life is good, you're very rich. Then Microsoft came and changed that, and they basically captured the area that's closer to the users, and they told you, who cares about what PC you're using, as long as you're on Windows and maybe have Office, nobody cares. And so they were able to capture the market, and everybody else just had to compete. All of the hardware vendors had to compete on price and stuff like that. And with time, the value in the chain has been going higher and higher. So you see Uber, it's a service. Even Google, they make their money off of Android by having these services that people use on top. So currently, the biggest value you can capture is by networking a huge number of people and allowing access to that. So it's a web service that is a very, very huge differentiation and competitive advantage, because it's hard to capture that many people. And once somebody has done it, it's very hard for a second player to come and do it. That's why it's very hard to dislodge Facebook. And with AR especially, right, this is a very interesting opportunity, because AR is all about context. It's about information that's relevant to you at that place at that time, and for that particular person with those particular people. So creating, capturing value around those things. What's so special about this group of people that I'm targeting? What are they interested in when they are in a coffee shop? What are they interested in when they're at an amusement park? If you understand, in our case, we're focusing what helps people most in their job when they're repairing a ship or something. What type of manuals do they want? What information? What alerts? Right? Whom, when they say help, which subject matter expert should they be connected to? Because there are 1 million experts on the ship, they need to be connected automatically to the right expert at the right time. And so capturing that, if you find a way to connect people contextually and very smartly and remove that barrier, this is very ripe ground right now. If you can capture that, this is a very, very great place to be, over starting from now over the next few years.
Bill, what I'm seeing in the industry right now, as in regards to your question, is something similar that we saw with websites. So I want to take the same comparison here, right? So if you think back maybe to like 1995 to 2000, what happened is there were a lot of agencies that then approached businesses and said like, hey, we can create a website for you, and they charge you on a project basis, right? How is this happening now? These companies still exist, but they maybe target like larger enterprises, right? Smaller people, they go to Squarespace, they select the template, and they basically create a website, right? I see something similar happen with AR, right? Right now, I see still a lot of people building proof of concepts basically by hand or developing them for a very specific use case, right? And what I hope will happen, and I'm pretty sure will happen, is in the next 5 to 10 years, that platforms will emerge where each and every one of us will be able to create simple AR applications for a specific purpose. Right, sure, there will be still like game developers and there will be more advanced entertainment applications where you really need to develop something custom, but I think something similar will happen what we saw with websites. We go from very custom projects right now, proof of concepts, to the mass adoption, to then platforms that will allow everybody to create their own content for AR.
Thank you both. So, Leon, as Epson has a product that is out in the market, I know that you have combined also with the use of drones, and I was hoping that you can give us some thinking on how this is changing, for example, in particular, the film and video industry, and how the use of the glasses combined with a drone change the way you shoot a movie.
Yeah, for sure. So a bit of background on the drone story. So our glasses, again, this is kind of what they look like. It's a transparent display. We didn't launch this product as drone glasses, but we've discovered through research, through attending trade shows, through listening to our customers and ISVs that the drone use case is very big. So I don't know how many of you use drones, but the current paradigm is you fly a drone and you're looking down at a phone or a tablet that's sitting in your hand to get a first-person view of what the drone is seeing. But what that gives you is a heads-down experience as opposed to a heads-up experience. Now, this isn't just a violation of what the FAA requires, which is to maintain visual line of sight, but it's also just not an optimized experience. What you want to be able to do is see your drone through your glasses, and in the glasses, see what the drone is capturing so that you can line up a shot and pilot the drone at the same time. This took off in the consumer space because there's a lot of people that fly drones for their own hobbies or personal interest, and they're doing like videography and photography. But there are tons of commercial use cases now we're discovering in the drone space. So people are ditching the helicopter that costs tens of thousands of dollars for a pretty solid capture using DJI drones with 4K cameras and stabilizers, and you can capture pretty much the same shot on a much cheaper solution. And our glasses are a great fit for that use case because we provide that heads-up display. Our augmented reality display allows you to kind of show telemetry data in the periphery of your view while at the same time looking through the transparent lens and seeing your drone, toggling between a live feed of what your drone is seeing and at the same time seeing your drone in clear sight. So this has turned out to be a big application for us.
Thank you. So, of course, as you move forward with any project and you start thinking about all of the things that have been said, there also comes a time where you have to choose your weapons. Which hardware, which software, right? And when you talk about hardware, I mean, there's never been a bigger range, and they're all viable, and they all can be used in a very engaging manner. If you know what is it that you want to do at its core. It's critical to think that AR is something that is going to be a core of what you're building. It's not like an add-on. I think that's something important to know. So in terms of hardware, I'm going to go to you again, Solomon. Since you're working with other partners, What considerations would you give to choosing which kind of hardware, how you're going to come out to the market? Because there isn't a one solution fits all.
There
right?
definitely
if I'm
is not.
doing a promotion in a concert, I'm not going to ask them to buy $700 glasses. You know, I may pass them something like this. But the opposite can be true in a different experience. So, what are your thoughts?
100%. So there are a number of angles to consider, and now in AR, a big thing that changed is as was mentioned, Apple and Google coming in very seriously. So those are platforms that of course should be considered. But usually you start with the user experience, right? It's all about the user, it's all about the human. And there are a few things that people care about. One is, of course, the price. The second is mobility. So actually, if you just have an entertainment experience and people don't need to be mobile, they don't need to walk around, you know, just a VR headset, much cheaper, you know, a couple of dollars, you slip in your phones, and they can see things around them, that's much more than enough. And then you go into the real world, and if there's an application where you want to add information to inspire the people as they are going around, you get this curve between a price point and size of the device. And so there are these large devices that have all of this power, and then you have these cheaper, lighter, smaller devices, but that cannot do as much, where you can send more like notifications, you get a card, a reminder, something like that. And the fundamental question there that decides is, what does the user need? Like, one solution that we see is in hospitals. Sometimes for nurses, you just need to send them a note, a reminder, right? You know, room this, you know, alert, something like that. So they can get a cheaper, much lighter device. While an anesthesiologist, while they are in the operating room, they want like 12 screens around them. And they want them to be like, if the color is slightly off, you know, it's not HIPAA compliant and stuff like that. So for that, you need something else. So the quality of the experience versus the size and the price are kind of the different dimensions that you play around with.
It's interesting. You mentioned the word platforming, and you mentioned choosing your weapons. I was trying to think through while you were talking the examples from the past of where you had to choose your weapons and the trend toward platforming. So you look at any microphone works with any audio system, any thermostat works with any furnace, any headset works with any phone, and they tend to be that way. And I don't know the answer, but will augmented reality be different? Will you really develop apps for one brand of glasses versus another, or will these be homogenized? It's hard to see right now.
Yeah, I tend to think, when I think about VR, I think about, you know, one of the use cases for VR that I think is compelling, and I'm more bullish on AR, but one of the use cases for VR that's compelling is gaming. You're playing Halo. You know, if you're playing Halo on your Xbox, you're going to, you know, an immersive headset might be even cooler, and that's an area where there are multiple platforms. You have the Microsoft platform, you've got the Sony platform, you used to have the Sega platform. You know, there are a few. There's a Nintendo platform. So we, in some areas of the technical world, we live with multiple platforms, and a lot of games don't translate from one to the other, and those companies are all doing okay. So I'm curious to see how this is going to play out.
Mm-hmm. Well, usually when you have a new market, if you think, actually, if you go and see to a computer history museum or something like that, you'll find some weird looking mice. Mm-hmm. Like they used to look like globes or curved in and so. And we had these phones that would open in weird ways on the sides like wings. And so you get a new platform and people just try like very, very different ways. It's a very rich ground for innovation. And then after a few years, the market usually decides on a few platforms and it freezes kind of, because they've already established enough traction. You know, there's I mean, in the mobile industry, it's Android and iOS. And it's very, very hard. You know, Microsoft tried, Nokia tried, tons of people, Samsung tried. It's very hard to come in. So what happens is that, yeah, you start with a lot, and then the market chooses, right? The market decides that this is the phone that I want. I don't want it to have any buttons. I want it to be just a piece of glass. And then it converges, and that gives you the next generation. People then can start building much more scalably, because instead of trying to build for 20 phones that look different, they have different buttons and whatever, they build for the top 2 platforms, and that covers 90-something% of the market.
Yeah, so the focus is on the mobile experience, but it's a given that you're going to develop on both phones.
So,
Yes, right?
So yes, and it is important. This actually brings a point that it is important to think also about that AR is not actually a technology. It's several technologies put together.
Yes.
There's visual recognition, gesture. There is distance sensing. There's a lot of different things that go into play. So for you, for example, Leon, on the hardware end of things, how do you partner with the right companies to put together the different technologies they have to come together to provide an AR experience, whether it's Pokemon or whether it's the Walkman?
Well, actually, we try not to pick and choose. You know, like our proposition, our glasses, and the way we position ourselves is that we're an open platform. Our expertise is in projection technology, which is at the core of our glasses, and in precision manufacturing, and that's our expertise. And so we deliver, you know, the optics on a platform that is familiar. You know, it's an Android-based pair of smart glasses, so the barriers to begin development on our platform are pretty low. And from there, we kind of realize that our expertise is not in software. We're not going to, you know, create these $1 million applications that are going to blow people out of the water. Instead, what we try to do is we say, hey, here's this platform that is very interoperable. It's open for extension. We partner with third-party software vendors for AR platforms. So, you know, while Apple is releasing AR Kit and Google's releasing AR Core, we partner with companies like Vuforia and Wikitude and other AR platforms to say, well, we also need to give our developers and people who are interested in creating solutions on our glasses a similar tool, a similar resource for them to create these use cases and solutions for you know, end users. And to that extent, we kind of position ourselves as a platform.
And I think this is so what is important here is that there are several technologies and there are several companies working on solutions to make this available to you. We also are not a hardware development, so what did we do? We created a content management system with a CDN so we can deliver rich media, analytics so you can measure success, and partner with several of the companies there in the space. And this is how things work, and this is how you can bring value to companies in the film industry or in education or in any other vertical market, because now with the combined technologies that are being developed, you can put together an AR experience that is appropriate to the audience that you're trying to reach. So let's talk about tips to create a great AR experience. And we have talked about that there's all this hardware options, there's all this software tools, there are platforms. So the tools to put something together and to distribute it are available right now. We can put something together this minute. So how do we get started? What are the things to consider before you jump into the proverbial pool? Who wants to get started?
The first thing before you do anything, you know, I'm telling you this from trial. The right information in the right place at the right time. If you have the most beautiful graphics like this, I don't know, we can add gorgeous model or whatever, and you show it to a person while they're driving, right? That's definitely not the right experience. If you block their field of view when you don't want to do that, that's not the right experience. If you're showing them the wrong information, right? They need a certain piece of information. You're sensing the context. You're getting all of that, and you misdirect them. That's not the right experience. So the very first thing, again, it's all about the user, all about the user. You start, what information do they need at what time, and where in their field of view should I display it? Should I display it on the side so that if they look a bit, if they turn their head a bit, they can see it, but then when they get back to their work, it's all clear, right? This is one advantage of these glasses. Is the phone a better platform, and it just buzzes, or send them a voice notification and they pick it up and look up? Or is it purely sound? Maybe I don't need to show them anything. Maybe I just need to give them instructions, and all they need is a Bluetooth headset, and the whole context awareness and the location, who's around me, is done through your phone. That's a low barrier. The right information at the right time, given the right way. That's if you have that wrong, it's very hard to get the whole thing right.
Thank you.
I'll suggest being lazy. So don't hire programmers and don't write code. Code is terrible. You have to write it, and then you have to maintain it, and it's like big pain. There's so much out there. There's a site called the Programmable Web that has like all APIs. Everything has been done. Everything's available on GitHub. Everything has interfaces into the devices and stuff. Just write the minimal amount of glue you can and leverage what's out there. It's just fast.
Yeah, I would.
And I'm sorry.
I was going to say, to kind of take what Suleiman was saying, one threshold question is, are you indoors or outdoors? What is the use case for this? If you're a surgeon and you're actually going to use the glasses while you're over the table, the amount of data that can be pumped into your glasses is, you can arrange to have, because it's a huge amount of data that has to move to get to what you need. That seems doable because you're in a contained space. If your app is something where people are walking around in the world, or you're at a stadium with 100,000 people, and you're relying on the cloud to get you the data you need to fulfill the use of the app, we're not there yet, and you're going to. That is going to be a challenge for at least a little while longer.
Yes, and Eric, so just building on that, UX and UI considerations, like what are your thoughts on that?
So I've seen something very interesting happening in the industry, and a lot of people seem to kind of like mix VR and AR sometimes. What I have seen many times over the last couple of months is that people take VR applications and they basically try to make an AR application out of it. So let me give you one example what I mean with that. We work with a lot of people in the automotive space. They try to enhance their design process by leveraging virtual or augmented reality, right? And we have seen a lot of projects where people take a model of a car that they first had like in VR and say like, oh, let's wear a pair of transparent glasses and let's look at the same model because it will be so much more better because it's in a real world environment. And in reality, it turns out it's really not that much better, right? Actually, you take a VR experience and you still feel like it's like a VR experience because you have a small field of view and you walk around. So having said that, that means that in this user experience, they did not leverage the advantages of AR, right? An advantage of AR would be I have a real world car model sitting here and I walk around it and I can change the rims and the tires and overlay a different bumper because then I mix the real world and the virtual world and I have all those advantages coming together. So I really would say like think about what is really new and unique that AR can really add to the experience and not just trying copying experiences from VR or a mobile experience into AR.
Thank you. So one of the things is important to remember is that augmented reality in a way is like a lot of the applications that you have been developing over time. So there is a process to do this, and it's part of what we've been trying to convey since the beginning of the session. So there's the process of the idea, there's the process of deciding what is it, who is it for, how am I going to build it. So I built this chart that has basically all of the what I call the 6 Ds of how you put together an AR application, and there's discovery, define, design, development, deployment, and now the distribution, because now when you launch, it's only the beginning. So, but as we're talking about tips, we haven't talked about something that is really important and I feel is always forgotten, and I'm going to go to you with this, Tom. Audio. Audio is really important for immersion audio is really important to convey the sense of action, of feelings, and all kinds of things. So if you're going to put together an AR experience, audio needs to be a component of it. And from your experience with Plantronics, how do you see that, Tom? How do you see the impact of audio on augmented reality?
I think you can kind of judge that by thinking about the impact of audio on our regular reality. As we walk around, we're sitting around the table, and we communicate to each other using words and ask for things using words. And audio definitely completes the experience as far as theatrical or delivering content to the human. It's fairly unique in its ability to go the other way, right? Convey commands to the world, and I think that's a part that's, I don't know, bringing those two pieces together, Alexa, Siri, and stuff, they're very good at request response. But imagine if our interactions as humans were the same way, right? I could ask you things, but you couldn't talk to me things. And so, conversely, like for an entertainment experience or listening to a podcast, audio is great. That works very well, but it's not interactive. So we're trying to close that gap, again, providing web API so anything can do, and basically anything could tell me things. But a key part of wearable technology with a watch or a headset or something is we can actually relay that it's being worn at the time. And so audio specifically, you don't want to just blurt it out. You don't want Alexa blurting out that you have a doctor appointment or whatever, because the same thing you can see with alerts on your phone, right? They just pop up everywhere. You don't know if someone's actually looking at that. So a wearable thing like a headset or a watch offers the ability to be sure you actually notify that person and that the message got to them.
Okay, thank you. Anybody wants to add anything else about audio? Going once, going twice?
Very quickly, human beings have at least 5 senses. If we're here to create an immersive experience that makes you feel like it is as real as anything else, we have to address all those senses. It's just that simple. And that, I mean, it's not simple, but you really have to do that if you want to. The more you can do that, the farther along the continuum you are.
Okay, so if you're going to do an AR project, an app, a service, an ad, whatever it is, there is a cycle. And as I mentioned before, when you launch your AR experience, it's only the beginning. And there is a whole lot of things that have to happen for that to be successful. Starting with the point that you should plan your release date way in advance and think about exactly how you're going to come out to the market. So let's talk a little bit about that. How do we prepare to launch an AR experience? Most people in the panel have been working with different partners, whether they're independent software developers or hardware that needs software or software that needs hardware. So how do you prepare for launch? How do people that work with you, Solomon, prepare for their launch? Is it the same as a mobile app?
If you're building apps for AR, one big challenge is that it's still a young market. It's a very, very, very hot market, but it's still a young market. If you go to the streets and you're comparing the number of people who know about AR, VR, and who don't confuse AR and VR, compared to the people who know about smartphones, it's a totally different universe. And this is why collaboration and partnership is especially very important in this case. So if you're releasing an app on the iPhone and you work very closely with Apple, Apple wants to push AR apps much more than they're hungry to push other apps. They will put in some effort, they will advertise it for you, they will help you, right? So if you're working with your glass partners, Epson has been a great partner in that, because it's very synergistic, right? Your app will not survive without them. Their hardware and platforms need the applications so that people find them useful. And so aligning with your partners, I would say, is the #1 key to make it successful. Align, work with them very closely, and don't go at this alone. Otherwise, it would. If you have $250 million to spend on advertisement, then yeah, maybe. It's still not guaranteed.
So for the other 99.9%, don't do that.
Yeah.
So, Eric, how about you? You're also working with partners.
So I already have the feeling that we are seeing like a little bit of a transition. I agree with Solomon that like until now, like partnering was very important, and there's also a lot of hand holding involved in launching successfully an AR solution right now, explaining it to people and really holding the hand specifically in the enterprise, right? But now with AR Kit and AR Core, I think there will be a transition when we talk about consumer apps, right? Where they will be launched like basically like a regular app. Right? I think the key for people to consider then is when launching the app is that basically when people use the app the first time, that the benefit is right there and people understand the benefit. Because, for example, an experience that I had is I was very excited about Apple launching AR Kit, downloaded iOS 11, installed around 15 AR apps on the first day, and all of them were not very good. Right? I basically still have 2 out of these 15 apps on my phone, right? And I think there people really have to do a better job, because for me, even as I'm like really deep into AR, the benefit of those applications was not clear to me, right? And I think this gets very important when we transition more to consumers being aware of AR, getting applications to them, right? Then it gets very important. What is the out-of-box experience?
And Leon, what kind of support are your ISV partners, for example, asking of you, or is there like tips that Epson shares with their partners on making a successful launch?
Yeah, absolutely. Before I get into the Epson support, I just kind of want to reiterate a point that's pretty prevalent here, is that it all starts with like a business. You got to approach this like AR project like a business, and with the advent of AR Kit and AR Core, you're going to see AR thrown at every app out there. There's going to be AR on everything, and it doesn't all have like practical or financial incentives for doing so. We focus a lot on our enterprise partners, our ISVs and our resellers, because they've formulated real businesses around AR. One really big example that we've worked with a lot recently is a museum partner. So imagine going to a museum and walking through exhibits, and as you kind of look over at a T-Rex skeleton, an indicator sort of triggers digital overlays on your glasses. It's simple. It doesn't have to do things like deconstruct the fossils. Maybe it just overlays some information about the dinosaur. But this is a real business because they've identified a need in the market, which is to enhance tired and boring exhibits. That this company was founded by a bunch of historians and people who are experts in the space. They have strong ties in the industry. They know a lot of people on Capitol Hill, and so they have those relationships. And then they partnered with us. And getting to Bill's question is they have the support from a manufacturer like Epson. We can provide them with units. We can provide them at scale. We provide co-marketing. We go with them to trade shows. We do joint press releases. We provide that backing for them to then go the last mile and deliver the solution to museums and theme parks and corporate headquarters. But I just want to come back to like it all starts with a business, and treating this like any other business you would.
Yes, and I think that what you said is absolutely going to happen. In the beginning with mobile apps, everybody had 600 apps on their phones. Soon enough, we find out that we didn't need 590 of them, and now we have screens with just a few apps. It's almost like a lot of users in the first 2 minutes you decide if an app is worth it of the space, the screen space or not. So I think you're right, the same is going to happen with AR. There's going to be all kinds of experiments thrown in there, but it's all part of the process too. You can come to new metaphors and new ways of doing things if you don't try things. And of course, as every transition, first you're going to see an imitation, right? How do I do something with the mouse, without the mouse, but still thinking like the mouse? I think the real innovation is going to happen in the next year or so when people start thinking of voice, gesture, eye interaction, and some of the other more advanced ways of using augmented reality. So let's talk a little bit about the future. And this time, unlike past years, we're not talking about the future in 2025. We're talking the future about next year, like next May, next October, so the next 6-12 months, what do each one of you see for the future? And we can start with anyone. We'll start at the far end with Michael, since I haven't talked to you for a while. I miss you.
Nice to see you, Bill. Future, next May. Well, gee, I hope Magic Leap has a product out by then. That would be cool. I think one of the things that we've been saying here is the advent of ARKit and AR Core, I think, really are going to accelerate this market. I think that if we're looking at a really satisfying consumer-ready version of AR glasses, I don't think we're there in the next year. That's still a little ways down the road, but there are some interesting things going on. I'm actually really intrigued, and I think these guys are here, the company Mira, who put together a very kind of lo-fi version of an AR device, and that's going to be, I think, consumer ready and not very expensive. Now, how good it is, I think, is another question. I don't know the answer to that yet, but I think the phone-based stuff is going to continue to get better, and we're going to continue to start sorting out what there's a point to and what there isn't a point to. But I think in the next year, I think we might be back here kind of going, well, that was an interesting year, but we're still not quite there yet.
All right. You want to go next?
Sure. I think we'll see a proliferation of APIs around services. So not so much that I'm going to integrate with glasses to tell someone about a meeting coming up in Microsoft Teams. That's too specific. But rather kind of notification services of, I want to alert the person. How do I do that? And maybe there's a visual notification mechanism that then, in the same way that, say, Twilio abstracted all the different SMS providers so you could just easily send a message to anyone, I just want to alert someone visually of something or pop something up in their field of view. I want to, say, tell someone. I want to know that they're wearing a headset and I could whisper something to them, a notification or something. And that's got to be generic. You can't integrate with everybody.
Solomon?
So I can't say names, but next year.
Oh, come on, dude.
Well, I'm thinking if I can, but I'm not sure, so I can't. But next year, one big change that will happen for glasses is that think smartphone. People who build smartphones, people who build PCs will actually start coming with their own glasses. And that is driving the point between the price and quality down. So you'll get stuff for a few $100s that this year costs $4,000 this year. Next year will cost like $800, $900 in 2018. They're saying early 2018, this is hardware, so it will be late. No, seriously, it will. Maybe 2 quarters.
No offense taken.
So end of 2018. But they're not, even those people, they don't believe that this will take over the consumer world yet. They want to inspire consumers. They know that they're aiming there. They think that the first generation will not take over. They're aiming that the second generation, which is they're planning in 2019, should be there. So those would be a few $100 glasses. They have all of these abilities of Tango and all of that. So, you can have a person sitting right there in that chair if you're doing conferencing. If you're doing movies or entertainment, you can see the aliens jump from over your table and stuff like that, and that's just for a few $100, right? So that's planned for around 2019. Of course, the big piece there is the right content, right? It takes content is king, and that will be the same for AR.
Thank you. Eric?
So what will happen in the next 12 months is that what Solomon said, there will be a lot of OEM customers launching AR headsets that what I see will be mostly focused on the enterprise space, really solving a lot of problems that different industries really have. So there will be a huge ramp in user adoption and a very high ROI for all these companies by leveraging the technology. On a consumer perspective, what I see happening is that companies like Apple, Google, as well as also Facebook, Snap, and others, they will start to build a massive, massive ecosystem of content, and they will make it easier for people to create that content as well as also to enjoy that content. And this building up of this ecosystem will support then consumer glasses coming in by 2019 and 2020, simply making the transition from here to here.
Thank you.
Yeah, I hate to rehash, but a lot of that stuff I agree with. I think, one, there's going to be a huge proliferation of AR applications just because the tools are there now for developers. I think this shift and focus to enterprise is not like entirely new. I think people figured it out a couple years ago. Like Google Glass launched several years ago and then retreated, came back with an enterprise solution because glasses aren't necessarily consumer ready at this point, and they figured that out and said let's instead apply our glasses in manufacturing or in warehouses. And so this shift to enterprise was really important. It's something that Epson has focused on for the last few years. Like I said, we've been at it for like 6 years. We've iterated on 6 different devices, and our focus has been on enterprise-ready solutions because that's what's going to keep businesses afloat until these devices are consumer-ready.
Thank you.
Bill, can I jump in for another second? So we were missing one member of the panel, Mike Hildebrandt from Daiquiri, who took ill and couldn't join us. I wish he was here because I want to hear what Daiquiri would say about the next 12 months. And what I really like about Daiquiri is we've been talking about consumer-ready glasses. Daiquiri, part of what Daiquiri does is they're putting projection screens onto devices that people are already wearing. Mm-hmm. Nobody knows whether people will go out and wear glasses in the daily world, but everybody who rides a motorcycle is already wearing a helmet, and and most of those have screens. So if you can do something with that screen, or a firefighter or somebody else, or construction workers, where people already have something on their heads and you can make those intelligent, that I think is going to happen fairly soon. I wish we had his projection on it, but that is something that's coming.
So in closing, as we started the session, I want to share with you that we have all of this head-mounted displays technologies, visors, glasses, smart glasses, Daiquiri, Avegant, Epson, and Athier and all of its partners, and more. We also have now Google and Apple position themselves, and certainly other hardware manufacturers are going to jump into. So when that happens, the consumer really benefits. So we have some other slides that we didn't get to, but we have stats, analytics, and more in-depth information about all of these businesses and some others. So if you are interested in the PowerPoint, let me know at the end of the session. I want to thank the panel. You guys have been great, and I want to thank you for your time.